I still remember the day my father passed away like it was yesterday. It was a difficult time for our family, and we were all trying to come to terms with the loss. As the eldest son, I was tasked with sorting through his belongings and taking care of his estate. It was a daunting task, but I was determined to do it justice. As I was going through his papers, I stumbled upon a letter addressed to me. I recognized my father's handwriting, and my heart skipped a beat as I opened the envelope. Inside, I found a letter and a check for $200,000. I was stunned. I had no idea my father had that kind of money, let alone that he would leave it to me. I felt a mix of emotions: shock, gratitude, and a hint of guilt. Why had he left this to me, and not my mother or siblings? As I stared at the letter, trying to make sense of it all, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned around to see my son, Jason, standing in the doorway. He looked surprised, and I could tell he had been eavesdropping. "Dad, what's going on?" he asked, his eyes fixed on the letter in my hand. I hesitated, unsure of how much to reveal. But something about Jason's expression told me that he already knew more than he was letting on. "Come here, Jason," I said, gesturing for him to sit down. "We need to talk." As Jason sat down beside me, I began to read the letter out loud. It was a long, rambling letter, but the gist of it was that my father had been saving up for years, and he wanted me to have the money to pursue my dreams. But as I read on, I realized that there was more to the letter than met the eye. My father had been hiding secrets, and he had left me a trail of clues to uncover them. I looked at Jason, and I knew that he was hiding something too. But what? "Jason, what do you know about this?" I asked, my voice firm but controlled. Jason shifted uncomfortably in his seat, avoiding eye contact. "I don't know what you're talking about, Dad," he said, but I could tell he was lying. I sighed, feeling a sense of unease wash over me. I knew that I had to get to the bottom of this, but I was scared of what I might find. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of a journey that would change my life forever. I decided to let it go for now, but I made a mental note to confront Jason later. I needed to know what he was hiding, and I was determined to find out. For now, I decided to focus on the letter and the mystery it presented. As I read on, I realized that my father had been leaving me a trail of clues to uncover a deep-seated family secret. He had been hinting at it for years, but I had never picked up on it. Now, I was determined to uncover the truth. I spent the rest of the day poring over the letter, searching for any hidden meaning or code. I was convinced that there was more to the letter than met the eye, and I was determined to crack the code. As the sun began to set, I took a break and went for a walk. I needed to clear my head and think things through. As I walked, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I looked around, but I saw nothing out of the ordinary. I returned home, feeling a sense of unease. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, and I was determined to get to the bottom of it. As I sat down at my desk, I noticed a piece of paper that I had missed earlier. It was a note, written in my father's handwriting. It read, "Look closer at the family business. The truth is hidden in plain sight." I felt a surge of adrenaline as I read the note. What was my father trying to tell me? I had always thought that the family business was legitimate, but now I wasn't so sure. I decided to do some digging, to see if I could uncover any evidence of wrongdoing. I spent the rest of the night poring over financial records and searching for any discrepancies. As the hours ticked by, I began to feel a sense of unease. I was uncovering some disturbing information, and I wasn't sure what to make of it. It seemed that the family business was involved in some shady dealings, and I was starting to suspect that my father had been involved. I couldn't believe it. My father, the man I had always respected and admired, had been involved in something illicit. I felt a sense of betrayal, and I wasn't sure how to process it. As the night wore on, I became more and more agitated. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was in over my head, and I wasn't sure what to do next. Suddenly, I heard a noise coming from outside. It sounded like someone was lurking around the house. I felt a surge of fear, and I quickly got up to investigate. As I approached the window, I saw a figure lurking in the shadows. I couldn't make out their face, but I could tell that they were trying to sneak around. I felt a sense of unease, and I quickly grabbed my phone to call the police. But as I looked out the window again, the figure was gone. I was left standing there, feeling shaken and unsure of what to do next. I knew that I had to get to the bottom of this, but I was scared of what I might find. As I stood there, trying to calm myself down, I heard a noise coming from inside the house. It sounded like someone was moving around, trying to sneak past me. I felt a surge of fear, and I quickly turned to face the noise. That's when I saw Jason, standing in the doorway, a look of guilt on his face. "What are you doing, Jason?" I demanded, trying to keep my voice steady. "I was just, looking for something," he stammered, avoiding eye contact. I didn't believe him. I knew that he was hiding something, and I was determined to find out what it was. "Jason, I need to know what's going on," I said, my voice firm but controlled. "I need to know what you're involved in, and what's going on with the family business." Jason looked at me, a mixture of fear and guilt on his face. He knew that I had discovered something, and he was trying to think of a way to cover it up. But I wasn't going to let him get away with it. I was determined to get to the truth, no matter what it took. Jason shifted uncomfortably, his eyes darting around the room as if searching for an escape. I could see the wheels turning in his head, trying to come up with a convincing lie. But I wasn't having it. I took a step closer to him, my voice firm. "Jason, I know something is going on. I can see it in your eyes. You're not as good at hiding things as you think you are." Jason swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing up and down. I don't know what you're talking about, Dad," he stammered. But I could see the guilt written all over his face. I took another step closer, my voice dropping to a whisper. "Don't lie to me, Jason. I can see right through you. You're hiding something, and I'm going to find out what it is." Jason's eyes flashed with fear, and for a moment, I thought he was going to bolt. But then, something seemed to click into place. He straightened his shoulders, a look of defiance crossing his face. "Fine," he said, his voice steady. "I'll tell you. But you have to promise not to freak out." I raised an eyebrow, intrigued despite myself. "What is it?" I asked, my voice neutral. Jason took a deep breath, his eyes locked on mine. "It's about the family business," he said, his voice low. "There's something going on, something that could ruin everything." I felt a surge of tension, my mind racing with possibilities. What could be going on that was so bad? "What is it?" I asked again, my voice urgent. Jason hesitated, as if weighing his options. And then, in a rush of words, he spilled it all. "It's about the money, Dad. The money that Grandpa left you. It's not just any money. It's dirty money." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Dirty money? What did that even mean? I stumbled backward, my mind reeling with questions. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice shaking. Jason's eyes dropped, his voice barely above a whisper. "I mean, it's not just any money. It's money that was laundered through the family business. Money that was made from shady dealings." I felt like I was going to throw up. My father, the man I had always respected and admired, had been involved in something illicit. And now, I was caught up in it too. I thought back to the letter, the one that had started all of this. The one that had mentioned the family business. It all made sense now. The clues, the hints, the trail of breadcrumbs that had led me to this moment. I felt a wave of anger wash over me, directed at my father and at Jason. How could they do this? How could they keep this from me? I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself down. I needed to think this through, to figure out what to do next. But as I looked at Jason, I saw something that made my heart skip a beat. A look of fear, of panic, that seemed to be directed at something behind me. I spun around, but there was nothing there. Just an empty room, a silent space. But I could sense it, a presence that seemed to be watching us. Waiting for us to make our next move. And then, without warning, the lights went out. The sudden darkness was disorienting, and I stumbled forward, trying to get my bearings. I heard Jason's panicked breathing behind me, and I reached out to grab his arm. "What's going on?" I whispered, my heart racing with fear. Jason didn't respond, but instead pulled away from me, stumbling towards the door. I followed him, my hands outstretched in front of me like a blind man. We stumbled through the darkness, our footsteps echoing off the walls. I could feel the presence closing in around us, a suffocating sense of dread that made my skin crawl. Suddenly, the lights flickered back to life, and we found ourselves in the hallway, staring at each other in confusion. Jason's eyes were wild with fear, and I could see the panic etched on his face. "What just happened?" I demanded, trying to keep my voice steady. Jason shook his head, his eyes darting back and forth. "I don't know," he stammered. "But we need to get out of here. Now." I nodded, my mind racing with possibilities. We quickly made our way to the front door, but as we reached it, I realized that it was locked. I tried the handle, but it wouldn't budge. "It's stuck," I muttered, trying to keep my voice down. Jason's eyes went wide with fear, and he grabbed my arm, pulling me away from the door. "We have to find another way out," he whispered, his voice urgent. We quickly scanned the hallway, our eyes searching for an alternative exit. That's when I saw it, a small window at the end of the hall, partially hidden by a curtain. Without hesitation, Jason sprinted towards the window, yanking it open with a loud creak. I followed close behind, my heart pounding in my chest. We squeezed through the window, our bodies scraping against the frame as we emerged into the cool night air. We found ourselves in a narrow alleyway, the only sound the distant hum of traffic. Jason turned to me, his eyes still wild with fear. "We need to get as far away from here as possible," he whispered, his voice barely audible. I nodded, my mind still reeling with questions. What was going on? Who was behind this? And what did they want from us? We quickly made our way through the alleys, our footsteps echoing off the walls. We didn't dare look back, fearing what we might see. As we ran, the tension built, our hearts pounding in our chests. We were being chased, and we knew it. But by whom? And why? The questions swirled in my mind, but I pushed them aside, focusing on the task at hand. We had to get to safety, and fast. We finally emerged onto a main street, the bright lights and bustling traffic a welcome relief after the darkness of the alleyway. We hailed a taxi, our eyes scanning the crowds as we sped away from the danger that lurked behind. But even as we escaped, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched, that unblinking eyes were trained on us, waiting for their next move. As we sped away from the danger, I couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. We had escaped, but for how long? And what was the real reason behind the strange occurrences? I glanced over at Jason, who was staring out the window, his eyes fixed on something in the distance. "Jason, what's going on?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. "I don't know," he replied, his voice barely above a whisper. "But I think it has something to do with Grandpa's business." I nodded, my mind racing with possibilities. "We need to get to the bottom of this," I said, determination in my voice. "But where do we start?" Jason turned to me, his eyes searching. "I think we should start by looking into Grandpa's past," he said. "See if we can find any clues about what's going on." I nodded, my mind already racing with ideas. We spent the rest of the taxi ride in silence, each of us lost in our own thoughts. When we arrived at our destination, a small hotel on the outskirts of town, we quickly checked in and made our way to our room. As we settled in, I pulled out my phone and began to search for any information I could find on my father's business. Jason sat down beside me, his eyes scanning the screen as I scrolled through page after page of results. Suddenly, he pointed to something on the screen. "Look at that," he said, his voice urgent. I followed his finger to a small article buried deep in the search results. It was an old news story, one that I had never seen before. As I read the headline, my heart skipped a beat. "Missing businessman's family receives mysterious letter," the headline read. I felt a chill run down my spine as I read on, the words blurring together on the screen. It was a story about a businessman who had gone missing several years ago, leaving behind a family that was desperate for answers. As I read on, I realized that the missing businessman was none other than my father's business partner. I felt a surge of adrenaline as I read the final paragraph of the article. It was a quote from my father, one that sent chills down my spine. "I'm not sure what happened to my partner," he had said. "But I'm determined to find out." I looked up at Jason, my eyes locked on his. "This is it," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "This is the key to unlocking the whole mystery." Jason's eyes were wide with excitement as he nodded in agreement. "We need to find out more," he said. I nodded, my mind already racing with ideas. We spent the rest of the night digging deeper, searching for any information we could find on my father's business partner and the mysterious circumstances surrounding his disappearance. As the hours ticked by, the tension built, our hearts pounding in our chests. We were getting close to the truth, I could feel it. But what would we find when we finally uncovered it? And would we be prepared for the consequences? As the night wore on, we continued to dig deeper, our search taking us down a rabbit hole of twists and turns. We scoured the internet, talked to old acquaintances, and even visited the local library, searching for any mention of my father's business partner. The more we learned, the more questions we had. It seemed that my father's partner had been a wealthy and influential man, with connections to some of the most powerful people in the city. But despite his wealth and influence, he had been a private person, and very little was known about his personal life. As we delved deeper into our research, we began to notice a strange pattern. Every time we thought we had found a lead, it would suddenly disappear. It was as if someone was watching us, waiting for us to get close to the truth before swooping in and covering their tracks. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched, that unblinking eyes were trained on us, waiting for us to make our next move. Jason seemed to sense it too, and we both found ourselves glancing over our shoulders, expecting to see someone lurking in the shadows. But every time, there was no one there. It was just our imagination, or so we told ourselves. As the hours ticked by, our search became more and more frantic. We were running out of time, and we knew it. We had to find the truth before it was too late. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, we got a break. A small article in an old newspaper caught our eye, and we quickly scanned the contents. It was a story about a secret society, one that had been rumored to exist in the city for decades. The article mentioned that the society was known for its ruthless tactics, and that it would stop at nothing to achieve its goals. As we read on, our hearts sank. My father's business partner had been a member of the society, and it seemed that he had been involved in some shady dealings. We exchanged a nervous glance, our minds racing with possibilities. Could this be the key to unlocking the mystery? We quickly printed out the article and began to read it more closely. As we read, we noticed something strange. The article mentioned a specific location, an old warehouse on the outskirts of town. According to the article, this was where the secret society held its meetings. We looked at each other, our eyes locked on the address. We knew what we had to do. We had to go to the warehouse and see if we could find any evidence of the society's existence. But as we stood up to leave, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. That unblinking eyes were trained on us, waiting for us to make our next move. And this time, I knew that we were not alone. As we approached the old warehouse, I could feel my heart racing with anticipation. We had finally found the lead we had been searching for, and I was determined to see it through. Jason seemed to sense my determination, and he nodded in agreement as we stepped out of the car. The warehouse loomed before us, its crumbling facade a testament to the secrets it held within. We approached the entrance, our footsteps echoing off the walls. As we stepped inside, I was struck by the eerie silence. The air was thick with dust, and the only sound was the creaking of the old wooden beams. We began to search the warehouse, our flashlights casting eerie shadows on the walls. Every step felt like a betrayal, as if we were uncovering secrets that were meant to remain hidden. But I couldn't shake the feeling that we were getting close. That the truth was just around the corner. And then, we saw it. A door, hidden behind a stack of crates. It was locked, but I could sense that it was the key to unlocking the entire mystery. Jason picked the lock with ease, and we stepped inside. The room was small, with a single desk in the center. And on that desk, a single piece of paper. It was a letter, addressed to me. I felt a shiver run down my spine as I read the words. It was from my father's business partner, and it explained everything. The secret society, the shady dealings, the mysterious disappearance. It was all there, in black and white. I felt a wave of emotions wash over me, a mix of sadness and anger and relief. I looked up at Jason, and saw that he was crying. We hugged each other, tears streaming down our faces. We had finally found the truth. And as we stood there, holding each other, I knew that we had finally found closure. The next few weeks were a blur of activity, as we worked to bring the secret society to justice. We worked with the police, using the evidence we had found to build a case against the society's leaders. And finally, the day of reckoning arrived. The leaders of the society were brought to trial, and they were found guilty of their crimes. As I sat in the courtroom, watching them being led away in handcuffs, I felt a sense of satisfaction. Justice had been served. And as I looked over at Jason, I saw that he was smiling. We had done it. We had uncovered the truth, and we had brought the perpetrators to justice. We walked out of the courtroom, into the bright sunlight. We were finally free. And as we walked away from the courthouse, I knew that we would never be haunted by the past again. We had faced our demons, and we had come out on top. The sun was shining, and the birds were singing. It was a new beginning, a chance to start anew. And as I looked over at Jason, I knew that we would face whatever the future held, together.